Turk's Quest 2, Chapter 1, Believing is Seeing. Okay, let's begin here. Turk tries to follow the eyes of the 5 foot tall spider creature he was interviewing. He could not do it. The eyes were too black. "See that gang of monorons coming through the door?" Spider-Man said. "You have to be careful dealing with them. They're very aggressive and will bite." "Bite?" Turk asked, watching the group of reptilians enter the pub and cross to a table. They teased and prodded half the customers along the way. "You mean bite me?" Spider-Man nodded. "Yow, thanks for the tip," Turk replied, turning back to the interviewee. "So tell me, Mr. Kanta, what do you believe life is all about? Why do we all live?" Turk continued to interview Mr. Kanta in a saloon situated in a small village on the northern continent of a planet called Chiliac D, the fourth planet orbiting the star Chiliac in the constellation of Lyra. Turk's experience with different species was somewhat limited. He had interacted with dozens of species over the past year. He might have been the human with the most experience socializing with diverse extraterrestrials, but it was clear that his knowledge was completely inadequate. He did not know much about any of them, except that you could converse using a translator, just as you could talk with other human cultures. They had likes and dislikes, wishes and dreams, values and fears. Turk had noticed that most alien species were either some kind of insectoid type or reptilian type. Only a small percent overall, so far, seemed to be mammalian-like, and very few were humanoid. Nearly all the higher forms of life, conscious, sentient life, had dexterous fingers on at least 2 of their limbs or hand-like appendages, and also possessed large brains or nervous systems, and were of medium physical size, not too small and not too large. With these characteristics, many had developed complex languages and tool-making skills. Creatures that were well equipped with physical attributes, such as speed, teeth, or strength, survived well in nature just as they were. They didn't seem to develop great intelligence. It seems that smart species had built-in disadvantages to overcome, but were large enough and physically equipped enough to survive. The medium-sized creatures were often lacking in physical prowess to survive for long, but coupled with being clever and learning to adapt, they developed sophisticated intelligences. The manipulative fingers and complex nervous systems seemed to be a recipe for successful adaptation. They were the ones that became sentient beings, like humans, who were the only sentient beings on our own planet Earth. Mr. Kanto was telling Turk about his own spiritual beliefs. Turk's handheld device was on the table, recording. "We believe that we are all trapped in the web of time. There is no time outside this web. Predators like disease and growing old are stalking us. They will stalk us our whole lives. We must set traps for our prey, but elude the eternal predators and fight against them. We hold them off for as long as we can, keep the web strong, wait for prey. One day we will let our guard down and fall asleep forever. If we lived a good life, then we will join the eternal ones who keep the webs of time strong. If we squandered our lives and fought against our true natures, We coil into a ball and be eaten by ants, never to wake again. But, Mr. Kanta, Turk asked, why are they keeping the web strong? Why are the eternal ones keeping the others trapped in time? Well, I suppose they can live life. Everyone wants to live their lives. Keeping the web strong and hunting prey, I don't know. It's a requirement. You have to live life. Then you are judged on how you live. That's just how it is set up. By his twitching back and forth, he looked flustered. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Turk thanked the Spider Man for his time, and the creature unfolded his legs and went over to the other two spider creatures sitting at another table. His legs seemed to jab the wooden floor, and the motion was pretty creepy. But Turk now had yet another story from another species. Turk, always the curious one, looked around the bar. There was a diverse assortment of sentient creatures scattered throughout the place. At the center table, there sat the reptiles, four of them, the monorons. One in particular was especially active, looking around, reaching his arm out to mess with people at the adjoining table. Turk sauntered in their direction. He made his way between the tables, slowly getting closer. Finally, he stopped in front of their table. The more aggressive-looking lizard pestered Turk. What are you looking for, baby man? You're a weird one. His compatriots turned towards the earthling and laughed heartily, eyeing Cantrell up and down. Turk took a few steps directly towards the loudmouth. He did not like bullies, and he didn't like to be intimidated, sometimes to a flaw. Hello, sir. My name is Mr. Cantrell. I'm not from these parts, and I'm looking to learn about people here. May I ask some questions about your people, and their beliefs? Loudmouth looked at his friends, burst into laughter, then stood up and circled Turk, eyeing him with amusement. He croaked, Miss Cantrell here wants to know our beliefs. They all laughed. You want to know our beliefs? That's right, Turk said warily, knowing he was being played. Loudmouth grabbed his crotch and said, We believe in this. Worship it, pig. His friends howled hysterically, nearly rolling on the floor. Loudmouth sat back and drank a long swig from his brew. Turk laughed politely along with them, then stepped towards Mr. Loudmouth Lizard and leaned into his face. So you also worship his private parts? Turk asked, pointing to the lizard man sitting next to Loudmouth. Loudmouth Lizard leapt up at Turk with his hands, reaching for Turk's throat. Turk, of course, was anticipating this from the reptile. He turned his body sideways like a matador as Loudmouth lunged past. Turk's knee came up under the lizard man's chin. Cantrell then kicked him away to create some distance. Loudmouth Lizard rolled over the table and onto the lap of two of his friends. The four lizards all stood up and crouched low, ready to attack. They began snapping their mouths like snapping turtles, and Turk remembered what the Spider-Man had told him. They were biters. The creatures moved in unison toward him. Turk shoved his PD phone device in his pocket and prepared for the attack. The two on the left came first. They jumped at him low. He leapt forward, placing one foot on the stool and launching himself over the attackers, who flew under him. The other two were now angling to intercept him, but he landed on top of the table, then bolted between them off balance. As Turk came crashing down, he rolled quickly, but one of the lizard men caught his leg and began biting. Turk kicked him in the head with his free foot. The other lizards were regrouping and coming towards the human. Just then, A loud, piercing blast of sound shocked the pub. Sounding like a boat horn, the noise stopped them all in their tracks. A creature was wearing an apron, was holding a sound device in one hand and something else in the other hand. He stared at Turk and the lizard sternly. No, no, no. Stop this. Stop this fighting right now, or we will call the law. Do you understand? He looked back and forth between them. Turk nodded. Loudmouth Lizard moved towards Turk, uttering animal noises. The pub worker touched Loudmouth with the other handheld device, which produced a bolt of electricity from electrodes at the end. Loudmouth jerked, then stiffened, then crumpled onto the floor. He moaned and began to rise groggily. The man motioned for Turk to leave with his head. Go, go. Turk did not hesitate. He thanked the worker and ran out the door. Making his way through the dusty street between mud brick buildings, Turk made a beeline for the space pad parking lot on the edge of town. He had been to several taverns attempting to interview different species, inquiring about their beliefs, and had probably overstayed his welcome. Arriving at the tarmac, Turk scanned the wide variety of parking spacecraft until he identified his own, a small van-sized homemade craft named the Bull. He ran over to it, placed his thumb on the recognition block, and entered the hatch once the hatch door opened. Tweet, screech, came a sound from the cockpit. Okay, all right, I hear you, my friend, Turk comforted as he entered the cockpit. His pet budgie parakeet, Ollie, always greeted Turk when he came back to the ship. There's Ollie. Something wrong with the picture. It was time to leave this planet. Turk switched on the anti-gravity system, see Appendix 2, and powered up the solar generator. He checked the AG indicators and the SF meters. The air was recycling and all seemed ready to go. Ollie, my boy, that was another strange place. Just when you think you're making progress, some creature ruins it. Those monorons were more animal than sentient being. The Bull lifted off and quickly flew through the atmosphere into space. Tweet! Ollie hung upside down in his cage, looking at Turk. True, so true. Some humans are closer to animals than intelligent, thinking creatures as well. Yep, you're right about that. Okay, next planet. He looked at his charts. Turk pondered his next stop. His space-folding SF propulsion, see Appendix 2 also, allowed him to go nearly anywhere in a short period of time. Choosing a nearby planet was more of a way to keep his trips organized than a factor of time or fuel. He could zigzag back and forth 100 light years per trip, and it would not take much longer than traveling a mere 1,000,000 miles using conventional propulsion methods. But keeping track of those locations would be confusing. He decided to stay in the Lyra constellation region from Earth's perspective. It would be easier for later referencing. He was no astronomer, but he was learning as he went by trial and error. He brought up the star chart and touched an area beyond where he wanted to go. That automatically established his direction. Then he set the TOT, time of travel, or ETA, to 60 minutes. That would give him time to prepare and think. Turk set a general course in the direction of Cygnus, but still within the Lyra constellation. He had not made up his mind which planet to visit next, but he'd look at the options in more detail during the trip. All right, Ollie, we're all set for our next adventure. Hopefully, we'll find people there. He pushed the engage button and Bull took off. Turk felt no forward motion change, but the stars raced by the cockpit windows, creating that familiar virtual motion. There was a slight buoyancy feeling, as if standing in a small boat, but it was something one got used to quickly. He walked into the back compartment and grabbed his guitar. Sitting down in a small chair, he began to strum. Strumming the guitar helped him think and reflect. Turk had been at this now for a year and a half. He did odd jobs and trading with a number of the Earth outposts and taverns scattered around Earth's solar system. He also did the same with a few places in unregulated space outside the solar system. Unregulated space was so large it would be impossible to explore it through several lifetimes, even with these vehicles possessing limitless speed. One still had to exist within time. On the stations within the perimeter of our solar system, now called just the perimeter, there was an independent spirit held by the human risk takers operating them. Space travel had been thrust upon the common human consciousness in a short period of time. And as a consequence, entrepreneurs set out mostly to mine precious metals from the asteroids, trying to make a profit. Supporting the workers at these excavation sites were taverns, pubs, convenience stores, and coffee shops. Many skirted the laws, but Earth laws had yet to make it into this new space. It was somewhat akin to the pioneers and colonists of old. New space was the new Wild West. Turk, being completely fed up with the pettiness, bureaucracy, and destructiveness of humans throughout the Earth, saw these new technologies as a way to escape Earth and seek independence, freedom, truth, morality, and wisdom. Bureaucracy, extreme ideology, and the desire to control people had become the overriding practice among all the major institutions in the United States of America. Big business corporations had monopolized all the goods and services we rely upon, and these corporations worked hand in hand with big government, which controlled and regulated everything you could possibly want to do. They approve or disapprove projects based upon how much revenue it brings them or how much headache it prevents them. Local governments approve continuous destruction of the natural environment by large developments, yet restrict individuals from having an old classic car they were hoping to one day reprise from sitting up in blocks in their yard. Turk had had enough of the endless lying by politicians, the endless false narratives by the mass media news outlets, pitting person against person, and the endless numbing down of people. The common person now living in our society knew very little about events actually occurring in the world and was filled with harmful ideas that were simply untrue. So much so that people were getting up in arms about the craziest things, really all trumped up fictions in the name of ethics or morality or safety, yet actually committed their own moral atrocities based on these lies. Governmental incompetence and cover-ups were found everywhere. The Benghazi, Libya American consulate was attacked and destroyed by a large group of Islamic extremists upset at America's arms dealing. Yet the government told the public that the mob was upset at an independent filmmaker who criticized Islam. It was a total lie, and 4 Americans died protecting the consulate. This coronavirus, COVID-19, that shut down the United States and much of the world for a few years ago, was found to be a bioweapon developed by the Chinese at a Wuhan laboratory. But it spread to the public domain and soon contaminated people around the globe. The U.S. leaders told the public that it was just a natural strain of coronavirus from bats. They failed to say that Chinese scientists used that same natural virus and combined it with to create the monster version that got out of control. Living had become a sham in our society. Lies, false summaries, conspicuous omissions, and other deceptions. We were living in a fake news powder keg, and Turk had had enough. He now lived mostly on the road, in space, except for the short periods of time he needed to recover back in his small trailer at the marina. Turk now spent his time repairing tavern plumbing, tweaking radio beacons, adjusting stairways, or else out interviewing extraterrestrials about their sacred beliefs. Between work assignments, he explored into unknown areas of space, seeking sentient beings, especially those willing to share their beliefs and culture. Turk asked them about how the universe was created, where everything originated from, whether there was a supreme being or consciousness, and in general, what was the nature of reality. He asked them and just let them speak. And via his handy dandy translator, which he picked up during his imprisonment on a moon near Vega, he could record it all, he could understand it all. His search before finding out about translators was not very fruitful. Techies back on Earth were trying to reverse engineer it, so far without success. Turk had begun his philosophical quest on Earth, trying to understand the true nature of reality. And Turk had begun his philosophical quest on Earth, trying to understand the true nature of reality and our place in it. But earthly sources had become corrupted. He read through Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Protestant, and Catholic, Jewish, and Muslim sacred books and commentaries. He sat in on nearly every religious service known to man. He also went through the general scientific knowledge of quantum entanglement, Big Bang, and various New Age spiritualisms. He explored the atheists' arguments and so many more. Who are we and what is our purpose? Pose this question to the different experts, which are more like different factions, and they will answer in a way that simply supports their beliefs, not present an answer that's insightful or wise. Their beliefs were now tied to justifying their beliefs, not to expounding underlying truths. There were certainly common patterns and references between the religions and beliefs, so there were clearly some underlying truths in them all. That was the truth Turk sought. End of chapter 1.